Yeah, so this morning we begin a brand new series. We're taking a break. We're not done with Acts. We're taking a break from the book of Acts. Recently, I was listening to a radio station, and they were talking about, were you ready for the month of June? Were you ready for the month of June? And like many of you, all the callers were calling in and they were like, are we in June already? Really? Where has time gone? June. And I remember a few weeks ago, I was with a bunch of you outside and people were like, hi, where's the year gone? You're my life. I knew I was going to lose weight. Nothing has happened. And I think the older we get, every year gets like that, right? The year goes ahead of us and we find ourselves in June, July, not sure what to do. And so, with that realization that time has moved on and we are halfway in the year, we become anxious. Because we realize that those plans, those New Year's resolutions, those goal and boards that we had in our rooms aren't actually full. What I thought I would do by April, I haven't even started by mid-June. We've bitten off more than we can chew. So as I was listening, one mom called in, and she was almost in tears. And she was saying, guys, I'm not coping. I'm not coping because my kids' school is trying to do two things. They're trying to catch up on all the schoolwork that we missed over the last 2 years and all the sports activities. It's like they want to cram everything into 1 year just in case that thing comes back. And she said, I am not coping. I don't know what to do. It looks like people are literally trying to compress everything we've missed out on the last 2 years into 2022. And so if we're to say that life is a journey, I think for many people who are caught unawares right now, we are like a sports car at the Kailami racetrack. We're racing, trying to catch up because we realize that we are behind. I think for most people, life is busy. We're trying to manage interpersonal relationships, trying to make sure that our loved ones still like us, and at the same time, we're trying to deal with our demanding jobs. For many of us, we thought that after COVID had passed, on the other side of it, things will go back to normal. Or maybe things will be just a bit relaxed. However, things have gotten worse. We've been hit with a series of petrol price increases. I was checking out my car, and since December 2 years ago, it cost me twice as much to fill up my car now. And I know that's a story for many of you here. Things have gotten worse. Interest rates are going up and up and up, and they are going up some more. An article I read this very week was entitled as follows: the perfect storm is about to hit middle-class South Africans. And as a church that's in Midrand, that's us who are seated here. Here's a line from it. The rising cost of living and significant debt levels mean a worrying proportion of South Africans are battling to meet their financial obligations each month. And I read that line, I went, duh, I think we knew that. Life is tough. We are swamped. We are pressed on every side. But even as we are pressed, many of us intuitively know that we can't keep up with this pace. We need to break. For our own sanity, we need to pause and catch a breath. Yet we are afraid that if we pause, we'll fall even further behind. So what are we to do? What are we to do? Well, I'm glad you asked, because as we begin this new series called Help, I'm Struggling, for the next few weeks we're going to provide help to the struggling and weary traveler of 2022. This morning, as I kick off the series, I want to speak about our posture, or the attitude we should have as we enter into these next weeks. Let's go on over to Ecclesiastes chapter number 4, Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament. 4, and I'll read from verse 4. I saw that all labor and all skillful work is due to one person's jealousy of another. This too is futile in the pursuit of the wind. The fool folds his arms and consumes his own flesh. Better one handful with rest than two handfuls with effort in the pursuit of the wind. Verse 7. Again I saw futility under the sun. There is a person without a companion, without even a son or brother, and though there is no end to all his struggles, his eyes are still not content with riches. Who am I struggling for, he asks. Why am I depriving myself of good things? This too is futile and a miserable task. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their efforts. For if either falls, his companion can lift him up. But pity the one who falls without another to lift him up. 11. Also, if two lie down together, they can keep warm. But how can one person alone keep warm? And if someone overpowers one person, two can resist him. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. The book of Ecclesiastes is written by Solomon, King Solomon, as he was about to pass on. It's a book about observations, and he comments on the human experience. Picture Solomon sitting in a coffee shop, and as he's sipping on that cappuccino, he's kind of looking around. Those guys are doing this, those guys are doing that. And as he watches people, he writes a commentary. Throughout the book, he assumes the role of a teacher. That as he's observing, he's writing insights to teach those who would come later. But what he's especially looking for is how people seek joy and affirmation, how people seek a pain-free life. Through work, through having good relationships, through eating, through drinking. And then he says, all of this is meaningless. Our desire for a pain-free life, our desire for joy, all of it is meaningless. And so throughout the book, you'll see the word meaningless, empty, pointless, worthless, over and over and over again. Because the essence of the book of Ecclesiastes is this: life is like mist, life is like vapor. You see it in one moment, but the very next moment it's gone. In other words, you could be doing well right now, and not too long from now, you're no longer doing as well. And so a cursory reading of this book will leave you feeling cynical about life. Why should I try and live a good life when actually nothing will work out? It's all pointless, it's all meaningless. But if you look a little bit deeper into what Solomon writes in Ecclesiastes, you will get wisdom for life, wisdom to help you lead a life that glorifies God. And so this passage we've read in Ecclesiastes 4 speaks to us today. Those whose lives are hurried. As we said earlier, we thought that after COVID, things will get better. But then now there's a war. And though we are far away, we are suffering the consequences thereof. For some of us, we thought that all I need to do is just to grow up. And when I grow up, I'll have money to do what I want. I'll have time. Right? Just like the song says, when I grow up, all I want to do is pay my bills. When I grow up. I guess you guys are too old to know those. Because one of the lines in that song says, when I grow up, I just want to make a couple of mil. We thought that it would be easy. Live my life and have my own joy without people around me. But how many of you know that adulting ain't easy? Thank you for those two, amen. The rest of you are liars. Cry. Verse 4, let's go back to our text. I saw that all labor and all skillful work is due to one person's jealousy of another. This too is futile and the pursuit of the wind. The fool folds his arms and consumes his own flesh. Better one handful with rest than 2 handfuls with effort and the pursuit of the wind. As he people watches, Solomon says, I see an individual who would fit in right into this busy Joburg lifestyle. This person understands that in order to get ahead in life, they need to burn the midnight oil, even if it means burning both ends of the candle. But as he looks a bit deeper, he says, we don't always have the best motivations for being successful. You see, as people, we look around and we become suspicious. It looks like my neighbor is doing a bit better than I am. It looks like they are enjoying their life just a tad more than I am. And when we see that, what do? We react and we join the rat race because we want to outdo them. I see my neighbor as somebody to compete against, not somebody to live in harmony with. This is the life of Johannesburgers. And so we say things to ourselves like, I can't be the slacker at the office. So when that email comes in at midnight, I am going to respond. I'm going to leave the office last just to show that I can do better than you. But in those very verses, Solomon says to us being part of the rat race is useless. It is meaningless. It's like chasing the wind. We all know too well that we can't catch the wind. The wind blows whichever way it wants to go. And so he says, when you join the rat race, when you are trying to outdo yourself and outdo others more and more and more and more, you will never be good enough because you will never catch up. There's a saying that no matter how good you are, there'll always be somebody better than you. That is life. So he says, if our motivations, is derived from envy, selfish ambition, fear, or greed, even what we achieve will not satisfy us. Because after you get your achievement, you'll say, but it's not good enough. As we said, we know that intuitively we need to stop. We need to get refreshed. Maybe we need to play a bit. Stop being so busy. But then he makes another observation. He says, those who take time to play are tempted to go the opposite route. The route of the lazy. So there's a worker, then there's the lazy one. Here's the thing. People who play too much tend to get stuck. And when you are stuck in life, you are actually moving backwards. I've found that for some of us as human beings, regret is a continuous loop. You're always regretting something. And people who regret stuff are people who tend to take it easy, they're relaxed. In other words, these are the procrastinators around us. You know, you wait until the very last minute to do something. And then when you know that you have to do it, then you get busy. Solomon says this too is foolishness because it's like suicide. It's an undoing of one's self. You see, the power of procrastination is in its ability to seduce you. It seduces you from accomplishing something. It slowly whispers to us, tomorrow you'll have better ideas. Tomorrow, make that call. And we're seduced and we procrastinate. Procrastination is appealing in the moment, but then it leads to anxiety. Because when tomorrow comes, we rue the fact that we didn't act yesterday. A continuous cycle of regret. Here's what one writer says about procrastination. For me, procrastination is a real condition, as though I am slowly suffocating myself from my potential, while at the same time crippling myself from achievement. This is what happens to the person who plays. So we find ourselves at a crossroads, because Solomon says, if we do too much, we don't find the rest that we need. But when we play or we rest too much, we will undo ourselves. This is meaningless. So what are we to do? Two answers. First one, We are to look to God because it's only in Him that we will find peace. At the conclusion of all his observations at the end of his book of Ecclesiastes in 12 and 13, he says, when all has been heard, the conclusion of the matter is this: fear God and keep His commands, because this is for all humanity. For God will bring every act to judgment, including every hidden thing, whether good or evil. Solomon says, look to God, because in God, that's where you will find peace and the rest that you need. Jesus in John 16 and 33 says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. You'll have suffering in this world. Be courageous. I have conquered the world. The peace and rest that we need from the toiling, from the wars, from the struggle, even from the pandemic, is only found in Jesus. It's not found in doing more. It's not found in doing less. It's only found in Christ, because Christ says, when you are in me, I will give you eternal peace. The whole world can go crazy around you, but what you will have is joy. What you will have is steadiness. That is what you need, to be steady in your heart. That is why the psalmist says, my help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth, not from the circumstances around me, but from God. And because we're at church this morning, I know some of you would say, but I'm already doing that. In fact, I'm praying 7 days a week, trusting God that He would come down and help me. I really, really, really want God to intervene in my life. I really want God to give me rest. So you could say I'm preaching to the choir, right? Well, I'm glad you feel that way. Because we should be always looking to God, but God also has something He expects of us. Let's go to verse 7. Again, I saw futility under the sun. There's a person without a companion, without even a son or brother, and though there's no end to all his struggles, his eyes are still not content with riches. Who am I struggling for, he asks, and depriving myself of good things? This too is futile and a miserable task. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their efforts. For if either falls, his companion can lift him up, but pity the one who falls without another to lift him up. Also, if two lie down together, they can keep warm. But how can one person alone keep warm? And if someone overpowers one person, two can resist him. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. So we are to look to God, and then God does this for us. He says, look to others, because it's in community that we will fully get to enjoy life. Look to others, because it's when we're in community that we will actually get to enjoy life. In these verses, the teacher talks about 2 individuals. One is journeying through life alone. The other is journeying through life with others. The one who is going alone seems to be doing well. That's what the text says. However, they realize that with all their success, something is still missing from their lives. They have all the riches that they ever thought that they ever need, but they are not complete. Here's the thing, and we say this all the time here at True North. God saves us as individuals, and then He places us in community. He puts us in community for a reason. Solomon, throughout the book of Ecclesiastes, says, your life lived with others makes your life meaningful. Living life with others gives it purpose. Or as we say here in Africa, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. In verses 7 and 8, our individual is traveling very fast. He is probably going to do great things, but he might not get far. And by far, I'm not talking about a distance, an accumulation, or a distance amassed, but about purposefulness and depth. When other people are in our lives, we have purpose, we have depth to how we lead. If life is full of potholes, if life is full of danger, it's always best to travel with other people. Why? Because when we're traveling community, we have help readily available. He says if you fall, there's someone to lift you. If you're cold, You can sleep close to someone else so that you can keep the harsh elements at bay. If someone tries to mug you, you have others who can help you beat them off. I love what one scholar says. He says, in community, our lives are strong and enduring like the rope of 3 strands. The individualistic life, by contrast, is weak and destined to be broken. And in a city like ours, we are called to be individuals, but God says, don't live like the world, live like my children, and my children are called to community. Don't be individualistic. Because God knew that when He places us in community, He is ensuring that we will have help when we need it. You'll have help when you need it most. As a church community, there are people here with diverse gifts who are able to equip one another at certain times in the journey of life. And so over the next few weeks in this series, we're going to learn from some of our people here at True North. People we can identify with. They'll have faithful conversations with us to help us on our journey of life. These conversations are important because some of these people have made the journey before. So they know what to do and what not to do. I love talking to older people for the sole reason that I always ask them, what were your mistakes? Because when I know what their mistakes were, I know which mistakes to avoid. And so that's what we'll be doing. So our journeys, our own personal journeys become a little bit less hectic. So we're going to look at relationships. Over the last 2 years, a lot of people have told me that, sure, my relationships are a mess because of what happened. So we're going to spend time discussing 2 relationships in particular, but I believe that some of the principles we'll learn will apply to all relationships. We're going to look at marriage and children. And some of you are like, but I'm single. Why do I need to hear? I don't have kids. Well, God is inviting all of us. Because I think it's important for all of us to have that card. Because whether you're single or you don't have kids, you have friends and family members who are married and who have kids. And isn't it good that as you're a single person there and your married friends are fighting you, but guys, we shouldn't be doing this. Some good advice. Don't smile too much there at the back. Because here's the thing. If we are a community, when your married friends are thriving, when they're able to raise their kids well, all of us are winning. So all of us get to lean in and hear what is happening. But even in those conversations on marriage and children, we can hear things that can help us in our other relationships that we have with other people. So we'll talk about relationships, then we'll talk about money. And under these uncertain times, we all need to hear about money. We all need to hear about our rands and cents. And yes, you might say, but I don't have much. Yeah, you still need to hear about it. Finally, we'll take a dive into our health, specifically mental health. The number of people, literally in the last 5 years, but more so the last 2 years, who have told me that they're struggling with mental health has tripled and quadrupled. And that's just looking at the people I know. So I know for some of you that is the case as well. So we'll be talking about that and hearing how we can find help at a time such as this. This series is a time for us to lean in and grow. It's to lean in and be helped. There's a parable that I love, and let me just read it quickly. A man was stuck on his rooftop in a flood. He was praying to God for help. Soon someone in a rowboat came and the person shouted to the man, "Jump in, I can save you." The stranded fellow shouted back, "No, it's okay. I'm praying to God. He is going to save me." So the rowboat went by. Then a motorboat came. The fellow in the motorboat shouted, "Jump in, I can save you." To this the stranded man said, "No thanks. I am praying to God and He's going to save me. I have faith." So the motorboat went on. Then a helicopter came and the pilot shouted down, "Grab this rope and I will lift you to safety." To this the stranded man again replied, "No thanks. I'm praying to God. He's going to save me. I have faith. So the helicopter reluctantly flew away. Soon the water rose above the rooftop and the man drowned. He went to heaven. He finally got his chance to discuss the whole situation with God. At which point he exclaimed, I had faith in you, but you didn't save me. You let me drown. I don't understand why. To this, God replied, I sent you a rowboat and a motorboat and a helicopter. What more did you expect? You see, many times when we find ourselves in trouble, we expect God to swoop down and sort out our problems. However, God has given you people who are here, people who are ready to help. So as we start the series, let's not be like this man, ignoring the help around us because we want to see angels somehow. If an angel comes, my money problems will be solved. If an angel comes, my health issues will be resolved. Our posture should be one of humility and grace, that I am willing to sit at the feet of others to learn. Other people have journeyed this way before. What can I get from them? At the end of it all, Solomon says this: live life with an open hand so that you can build relationships. Because it is when you're in relationship with others that you fully get to enjoy life. And so my encouragement to you as we open up and scream out for help is that we would be a people who are willing to listen, who are willing to ask questions.